Hi, everyone. I'm Don Saucer. I'm the Faculty Associate Director of the Teaching and Learning Center, and you have found your way to our Professional Development Series, and for that, we were very grateful. Our Professional Development Series meets every Wednesday at noon over the course of the academic year. We also record our events for asynchronous viewing. So after you see today's event, you say, oh my goodness, my colleagues need to know about this. It'll be on the TLC webpage shortly, and you'll be able to direct them to this. And today's event's going to be awesome. A couple of announcements before we get to today's event. I'm sorry, just letting people in. No one comes early to Zoom events, as we were kind of talking about. People are kind of coming in now. We have the opportunity to earn a professional development certificate through the TLC, either as a GTA or as a faculty or staff member. My colleagues will drop that information for you into the chat. If you're a faculty member and you're looking to not only enhance your own teaching excellence, but the excellence of others, you can actually apply to be a TLC fellow. And then you probably earn a spot in next year's professional development series as a presenter. And we've got some TLC fellows in the audience today. We're very grateful for all the things that all of you do. That is also available at the link that has just been dropped into the chat. We'll remind you, we also have a TLC Hub. This is a Teams channel where we can share some information. We can crowdsource some information. We can let you know about our events and kind of the way that K-State Today sometimes did. But this is a little bit more vibrant and dynamic as well. So we're very excited about that. I also want to put on your radar a couple of things. Next Tuesday, November 18th, is Fix Your Content Day here at K-State. And what that means, we're moving toward that digital accessibility mandate in April of 2026. And we're starting to make those changes in our Canvas courses to get us closer to being accessible and consistent with those guidelines so we can make sure that all of our students are being taught the way that they should be taught. So what will happen is they actually have drop-in from, I believe, 11 to 5 on Tuesday, maybe 11 to 4, next Tuesday in Hale. And people will be there and they can help you fix your classes. So if you're saying, hey, that accessibility score in Canvas isn't where I'd like it to be, there are people that can help you out. I'll be there both working on my class for some of that time and helping other people work on theirs to try to get my numbers up as high as they can be to make sure that I'm servicing my students as well as I can. So let you know about that. I'll also let you know that today's event is part of a whole week of kind of focusing on first-generation students and making sure that they are being educated the way that they are. Many of us, myself included in the audience today, are first-generation college students. So we've lived that experience, and now we're trying to pay it forward in some ways to help other people navigate it the way that we had to. So today, without further ado, I'd like to introduce our speakers, Rebecca Paz and Eric Thompson, who are going to be talking about what we need to, this is a need-to-know event about supporting first-generation college students at K-State and beyond. So the floor is yours, and thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Don.
Thank you.
Eric is going to share the slides. And
I'm requesting access or VIP status. There we are.
give me a second. All right, I need to get full screen. Give me 1 second too. I need to, all right. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for that introduction, Dr. Sassier. My name is Rebecca Paz, and I lead the First Generation Student Center.
Eric Thompson, I'm the director of our TRIO ESS and SSS programs. That's the Student Support Services programs for Manhattan and Salina campuses.
And we are excited to talk to you about something that we are very passionate about, which is first generation students, and have a conversation about how can we support those students in the classroom and how can also we help you connect, or you can help us connect to the students. So hopefully, but today we will understand the first generation experience. We will practice an asset-based mindset teaching first-gen students and really learn about first-generation student resources with the purpose that you can connect those to our resources. So first of all, let us see, the first thing we want to know is how many of us are first-gen. So first generation students are those who need a parent or guardian completed a 4-year degree. And so I wanted to know how many of us are first gen. Eric, great. That's awesome. We only have 3, 4, okay, 5. Awesome. Well, thank you. So you will be able to also help us with your, maybe share your experiences. I also, you may wonder what these other this other little sign it says First Gen Forward. Basically, what it means that K-State is recognized nationally as a First Gen Forward champion institution. And so we lead first generation student efforts that are recognized as best practices across the nation. We are part of a network of 180 plus institutions and part of a network called the First Gen Forward. And so we have been recognized as a champion institution, and that is something we are very proud of. And that's something that is not easily achieved. So this next slide will tell you a little bit more what does this network look like and what does it mean to be a champion institutions. So as you can see, there are three phases in which institutions advance according to their accomplishments. And so the institutions work closely with the First Gen Forward leadership to establish goals and strategies to achieve a culture a campus culture that advances first generation student success. And so K-State started out when the network started way back, I think 5-6 years ago, and we went through the stages. And right now we are at the network champion level, and you could see that this means that we are leading the way in a lot of these efforts. So as you may expect, extensive research exists about first generation student experiences, and they're still going on a lot, and we need to discover a lot more. So this First Gen Forward, which is our the network in which we belong, has started a journal of first generation student success. So we wanted to make sure that you were aware of it if you wanted to learn more about, or maybe if you want to publish and submit articles for publication, because this is really exciting that there's so much information out there and we keep learning more and more. Now let's dig a little bit more about the research-based knowledge that we have. And first, we just wanted to quickly go this true or false to see where we are. So the first one is first generation students have limited culture and social capital about university environments. Do you think it's true or false? How many of you think it's true, or what? If it's true, raise your hand. Okay. All right. And why would it be true? Can somebody explain it?
They haven't had models for that experience.
Okay. Thank you. The parents didn't go, so it's like an uncharted territory for us, right? Yeah. And some of us, we can really relate to this. Number two, first generation college students often work more hours and borrow more money while in college than their continuing generation counterparts. True or false? If you think it's true, raise your hand. Okay, perfect. Yeah, it is true. And what this also means is that because of this, students have less time for studying. So that can affect their academics as well. So many times we may think, oh, good, that student is lazy. Maybe not. Maybe the student is working 40 hours a week and they have very little time. Number three, first generation students are only students of color. How many of you think it's false? Okay, awesome. So that's right. So, and you're going to see later on that where our students are in terms of demographics at K-State, but all over the country, we see there's a lot of diversity and students who come from all aspects of society. So number four, academic adjustment and achievement may depend more on co-curricular and structured academic activities. What do you think? Don? Okay, yes. So basically, as you know, thank you, Melissa. We talk about high impact practices a lot, right? In higher education, and those are like K-State First, internships, programs like Eric's program and study abroad. So basically, if students participate in this and also in on-campus organizations, they're more likely to succeed. So they don't want to be a burden to their family, and they feel pressure to succeed and make family proud. Do you believe this is true or false? I am true. Melissa says true. Okay, so this is a little bit of information. So let's go to them because there's more information and I want to just go quickly over it. So basically, I want to tell you that there's a completion gap, as you can imagine, because of these differences in between the first generation students and the continuing generation students. And these numbers right here are at the national level. Something that we're learning that is very current that as first generation students are applying to college at twice the rate of continuing generation students. So this means that these are the students of the future. And if we don't go after them, we're going to continue to have those declining enrollments. But not only that, they're going to be the majority, they're going to be increasing in our classrooms, right? And we need to be ready for them. When we say they do not possess cultural and social capital, really want to highlight that it's related to higher education because these students come with a lot of cultural wealth, and we really want to recognize that. They are resilient, come from different backgrounds, and again, they many possess community cultural wealth. We talked a little bit about earlier in the other slide, because their parents did not attend the university, they have to decipher their hidden curriculum. Now, this hidden curriculum is so essential. So I would like to ask somebody if you would share what you think the hidden curriculum means.
I think it can mean a lot of things, but even just terminology is confusing to students. The difference between university and college, the difference between undergraduate and graduate. And I know that you have a great section of your website, Rebecca, that just has a glossary of college terms that a lot of students wouldn't know, especially if it's first generation students.
Thank you, Melissa. Yes, the language that we use, even when we meet, right, we use so many acronyms, it's very foreign to the students. Also the rules, the regulations, right? Students may not know that there's a drop deadline. I'm teaching a CAT community, and Dawn, I know you are too, and there's a lot of stuff that the first year students do not know, and we make those assumptions. So not being able to decipher that can also be a disadvantage. So this is where we come in, right? And let's assume that they know everything, because you don't know what you don't know. They also receive less financial support than their continuing generation counterparts, and have, like we said before, multiple obligations outside of class. A lot of our students are very attached to their families. They may have to go home on the weekend. Some of them live in Kansas City. Some of them may have to translate for their parents who speak another language. And so K-State, actually the First Generation Student Center, conducted a study with PowerCat Financial back in 2021. And we learned that our students relied on loans and work to pay more for school, and felt a lack of financial support from families. So the national research that is out there about finances and having to work extra also really hits home with K-State. So there's also research. Can we go to the next slide, Eric? All right. So as you can imagine, because of what's going nationally, because of the current federal policy changes, right now they're feeling a lot of financial anxiety, and they're anticipating risks to the financial aid, and this could really affect our retention rates. So then the other piece of research that I think through the First Gen Journal, we're starting to unpack is that research regarding careers. It's not just about retention, right? So are we preparing them for careers? What do they need to get that preparation? And beyond that, what's the experience for them outside college as professionals? So they are less likely to participate in those high impact practices, like we talked about, specifically career fairs. And so remember, that's a disadvantage too. And so remember, they also may experience imposter syndrome. It's that feeling that you're not good enough, that you not belong. And that's something when we work with our students, we really want to hone in and really validate them that they belong, because they, especially in a classroom, if they're feeling overwhelmed, they can feel that imposter syndrome kick in, and that's just going to drive them, it's going to go down. regarding careers, we learned that they often navigate unfamiliar career environments and they need mentorship. So the mentorship that we give them, besides academics and adjusting, also needs to be included career. It's really important. Because they need to adapt to occupational, class, and economic terrain. Because when they leave the university, it's also going to be different adjustment. So because they are so well experienced at code switching, this helps them with transition into the workplace. So as you can imagine, the students from immigrant backgrounds are drawn back to their communities and they want to stay close to family, and that may also impact their ability to find jobs, right? They have a smaller place to choose from. The next piece is really important, and to me, it speaks a lot that when we close the completion, if we close the completion gap nationally, it will result in 4.4 million more graduates, and this will translate of $107 billion into the U.S. economy. So just think of the impact, right? So the opportunities we have and the impact. So as I said, there's a lot more research. There's just a few takeaways. So what does so I hope that this is really that research was helpful for you to understand a little bit about their experiences. So who are the first-gen students at K-State? And how does their completion rates differ from continuing generation students? So first, as you could see, there is some ethnicity background. I think a lot of people just assume that maybe first-gen students come from a specific background. They come from all different. And I think that the majority of them obviously are white and many of them are rural, come from rural backgrounds. So where do they learn? So the majority of them are in Manhattan in the campus, but we have a number of them also that they learn online. And you can see this chart right there. And the majority of our students are also come from out of state. And I mean, sorry, from the state of Kansas, and the minority from out of state. So now let's talk about a little bit the other statistics, right? We talked about the gap. And so this chart tells you about the retention rate into the second year. And you can see this, we fluctuate, we go back and forth a little bit, but it's still lagging behind and we need to do better as an institution. The next slide is going to talk to us about the 4 years graduation rates and the 6-year graduation rates, and you're going to see the comparison with the continuing generation students, and you can see the gap. So this really illustrates the need that we have to close these gaps and to work together. And this is another one that gives us the trends. It looks like we are, going up a little bit on 1 year retention, but, we took a dip in 2020. And this really helps us understand where we are and where we need to go. So I gave you information about research and what's happening here. Now I'm going to hand it over to my colleague, Eric, who's going to take it from here.
Thank you, Rebecca. So hopefully the research is clear that, not just all over the country do we have a gap, but at K-State, we have some, as my grandfather would say, we have some wood to chop as well. I'm going to talk a little bit about that asset-based lens. It was kind of a teaser opening up. What is the asset-based lens and what is the asset-based approach? And in many areas in sociological sciences and psychological sciences and education, I think as sort of a collective group of people who are interested in knowledge have learned that, the sort of medical model of looking at phenomena is limited. And so rather than looking at the deficits of first generation students, looking at their assets and actually what they're bringing to the classroom and to the campus and into our environments, whether they're in the education sector or others, I think really provides an opportunity for all of us. The asset-based lens is just an education approach that says, take a look at a student's strengths, okay? Rather than facing on, maybe there's an education background, there's an education background that doesn't lend itself well to the college experience. But what are they bringing? Maybe that student is bringing resilience, and maybe that resilience that they're bringing to the classroom might offer benefits not just to the students, but to the rest of the class. And so that asset-based lens really, again, provides just an opportunity for us. And so every learnereverywhere.org has a nice sort of overview of the education model, but also a glossary of terms and a way to practice language. And we're going to provide those resources for you later. Whenever I do a presentation, I love to provide just resources. This is stuff we think about all day. You have lots of other disciplines and areas that you're an expert in. This may not be something that's at the top of your priority list every day, but in those moments when you're thinking about, okay, I want to know more about first generation students, we provided some resources, and we'll have that link for you here in just a little bit. Okay, so in the classroom, and I want to just kind of put it back on you, or give you an opportunity to talk about how do you practice advising or teaching through an asset-based lens. Is maybe something you think about often, or maybe something you haven't thought about that you're doing, but now that you have an opportunity to think about, okay, in what ways am I really bringing forward, or am I really encouraging a student to focus on their talents and their strengths versus what they may be lacking in the classroom?
So one of the resistances I get when I talk about assets-based stuff is it's not standardized, right? Students are doing different things. It's a little bit harder to process, a little bit harder for people to grade, might not scale up in a large class as easily. So a lot of the resistance I get is logistical, and sometimes college environments aren't made for us to do this very easily.
I agree. And, sometimes, and I, am very much a novice in the classroom as I've taught EdSet 111. But through that experience, what I did learn is that sometimes, I'm able to adjust my lens just a little bit to allow a student to be more creative as they, have an opportunity to talk about their own unique experiences. For instance, if a student approaches an assignment or a prompt in a way that may be wildly different than their classmates, maybe just that extra, time to read it and try to see it from their perspective may help. It doesn't have to be anything groundbreaking. It doesn't have to be, something that you'll write a journal article about, but for that student, it makes a difference. It's kind of like that starfish theory, whereas that student may face rejection in another course because of their writing. In your course, there may be an opportunity to really sort of meet that student where they are and really understand that they're writing from their own perspective. Just to give you, and this is kind of a different example, but I remember I taught ACT prep in Kansas City, and I'll never forget the ACT prep model for training was to use the prior version than what's offered currently. And so this is literally a test that was live, an ACT-C test that was live the year before that. And one of the questions asked about a schooner. And I thought, well, if I don't know what a schooner is, how do I expect my students to know what a schooner is, right? And how many of you know what a schooner is? If there's somebody here that will just, join me in my first generation ignorance, I would appreciate that solidarity. But I did not know what a schooner was. I later learned there was a boat. And that's just a small example, but in education, I still think we have a lot of work to do to really help students to feel like they can bring their authentic selves to the classroom, in which there's so many, sort of messages that they don't belong, or that their experience somehow is different than the majority.
So if I can kind of ask a question. So when I have conversations like this with our colleagues, a lot of times what I think it boils down to is anxiety in the classroom. So when you're expanding your lens, there's a possibility you're going to look unprepared, right? There's a possibility something's going to happen that's a little unpredictable, uncontrollable. So I find especially people who haven't taught for that long, right? They're kind of hesitant to maybe, relinquish some of that control of the classroom in the ways that this would require. So I wonder if there's any inspiration you can provide, or any tips you can provide to having people maybe let go in a way that lets this happen.
Don, I feel that, oh, Eric, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
This is really important. I think when you are being genuine and you're modeling that for the students, right? So I think that's really important also to advocate for professors to do that, to really accept the fact that maybe sometimes you don't know the answer or you don't know how to help somebody, right? And just so that they can see the humanity in you, because I think that's also realizing that we're all human, because the students see us as authority figures, right? They may see us as never making mistakes. So I feel that we also in the classroom and when we're advising students, we need to have that more humility mindset.
And I think what we're doing right now, I think it's really the key is sort of leaning on the community. And as we, sort of wrestle with, these new challenges. Rebecca and I had a great discussion with the group the other day just about AI in the classroom. And, the only way to really address it is through, is to have conversations about it. And that takes time, right? And so time is the greatest gift you give anyone. So to give each other time to really talk about, what are you trying? What are you doing? Are you seeing this? Again, in my very limited experience with EdCep 111, what I've been able to do is really take advantage of all of those that have gone before me and sort of glean. I'm not reinventing any wheels, right? But I'm gleaning, and there aren't any really new problems. They just look a little bit different in today's context, and so I'm able to make those adjustments and maybe show up, and not trying to figure it out in real time with live bullets flying. But I've already had those conversations, and I'm prepared to pivot or adjust as necessary. So I don't know if that answers your question, Dr. Saucier, but it's I think this is it, what you're doing right now.
And I think this is a process. I don't know if there's a single answer, but I really do appreciate the insights you both shared.
And I also want to make sure that we all there's a comment in the chat that I want to say. It says a hindrance might be that there are not concrete black and white standards or definitions of success, failure, or right or wrong. I think something that helps change mindset or helps open mind is taking appropriate pauses or breaks, even if it's just a deep breath. Thank you for those comments.
I agree. So why is this important? Why should we talk about this? And I think we've kind of already addressed the return on investment. As we are progressing every day closer to the enrollment cliff. We know that we'll all be challenged with enrollment. Enrollment is everyone's job. Retention is everyone's job in some way or another. And I think we have to be mindful of, those students aren't just a seat in the classroom, but they do represent, I think, our ability to continue to do the work. Each person represents a portion, of that revenue stream, and money does matter. We have to keep students here so that we can continue to move forward. Also, I don't know about you, but none of us are here because we're going to get insanely wealthy and buy, schooners, yachts, or whatever, right? We're here because we really do believe that education is a bridge to a better life. It is the key to upward mobility, at least in our society. And so it's worth it. And obviously increasing the educated workforce lends to that. And the U.S. economy abroad, I think doing our little part, right, allows us to remain the bright light and the beacon that we have been for so long. Even in the midst of all the things that are happening in the world, I still think, and I like to believe, and I'm an optimist, that we are a bright light for the rest of the world. So best practices to acquiring an asset-based lens mindset is just to do it, right? It is to practice it. It is to sort of immerse yourself in that language, immerse yourself in the literature. And again, we're going to provide some resources here in just a moment. But again, to discuss it amongst yourselves. And I don't really, I don't know if it's, as much of a challenge to do it. But I think to recognize what you're already doing is important, right? Sometimes they're just intuitively, there are intuitive practices that you bring to the classroom every day that you might not consider, an asset-based lens, but it is. And maybe you'll be driving home this evening and say, you know what? This is something I do, and it is an asset-based approach versus maybe what I was taught, or maybe what I was, I read in a book was more of a deficit approach. I'm using an asset-based approach, and I think just to lean into those insights is critical. Seeking to understand the first generation student experiences. If you're not first generation, and even if you are, every first generation student is different and has had different experiences. Again, just I'll share from my own life. And if you're going to be at tonight's event, I may bring this up again, so please don't spoil it for those who haven't heard it. But I was one of those first generation students who didn't have a great first run at college. I came back as an adult, non-traditional student. But part of that I can tie directly back to being first generation. For instance, I had a really bad semester, and I didn't know that you had to fill out paperwork to withdraw from the college. Okay. I thought if I just stopped showing up, they would know I'm no longer there. And what did that get me? That earned me a nice 1.7 GPA. And when I came back, I had to dig myself out of the GPA hole, but also I had to pay out of pocket. I had to pay full freight. And so if I had just known that there was a proper way to do it, that there was a process, I could have changed my trajectory, 100-fold, right? I could have saved myself a lot of time, a lot of money, a lot of stress. And so sometimes it's not necessarily just about the hidden curriculum. It makes it a little bit more difficult for students, but it can actually cost students time and money. Another, challenge that I think many of our students face in working in retention, doing retention work every day, I probably have, at least this conversation at least once a week, protect your GPA. And I think students who really do understand doing college, not just what's happening in the individual course, but how to do college, they understand that it's important to protect their GPA. And first generation students, I found, are much more likely to intuitively, resist dropping a course if it's not going well because they feel like a quitter. This is, anecdotally, what I've heard students tell me is that I'm not a quitter. I don't want to quit. Even if they come out of that class with a C or D, not understanding the big picture that, many of us understand, that is really important. It's more important to protect your GPA. Tunnel vision is another, challenge sometimes first generation students face. I'm just here to get the work done. And they're missing out on all the wonderful things that happen on the college campus that are opportunities that make college much more enjoyable, that really enrich their experience and also set them up for future success. Advocate to remove institutional barriers. Okay, again, I think that's what we're all doing here today, right? Is, learning about the first generation student experience because it's important so that we can make change. And connecting students to existing campus resources, knowing where the resources are. I mean, that's challenging. For instance, if a student needs tutoring, in a course, am I able to react very quickly and make sure the students get to the resource that they need to access, so that they don't lose time looking for that resource themselves, because sometimes they can be buried, right? They can be not readily accessible on the website or something like that.
Yeah. Eric, may I quickly add a little bit regarding this last item that says connecting students? I think this is so powerful, and this is a great opportunity for you to connect them to us when you feel that they really need help beyond the classroom. And I will just give you an example of a student that I saw a couple of years ago, and actually I saw her yesterday again at the First Gen celebration. So she came as a transfer student, and she was feeling lost. She was not doing well emotionally, financially, nor even academically. And her professor noticed it. And she also noticed that she was a first gen student. So what the professor did is she reached out to me, and I reached out to the student. And the student came in tears. She was feeling horrible. She had that imposter syndrome. She had a huge bill. She wanted to quit. So I was able to connect her with McNear, with Eric, with a lot of support and emotional support. But today, She's a senior. She was there yesterday. She was helping out. She's paying it forward. She finished McNair last year, so she is full of confidence. She's been inducted into Tri Alpha, and it was so wonderful for me to see the growth, and more than just how much she's advanced, but also the confidence that she has. She was telling me that she's gonna have her own business. It's just like amazing, right? But this wouldn't have been possible if that professor hadn't reached out to me. So just remember, those connections are so essential, because we feel that if a student even just has one right connection, they're gonna make it. So remember that and reach out to us, or even when you're in doubt, and we can take it from there. Thank you.
Thank you, Rebecca. Okay, so using an asset-based mindset to foster belonging to all. So taking stock of implicit and explicit messages. Sometimes, unconsciously, we may, even talking about first generation students, I have to be very, very careful myself. I've done this work for many years, and I still have to sort of examine and interrogate my own language, my own biases, and really make sure that, the messages that I'm sending students aren't filled with deficit language. Seeking to understand cultural differences and intersecting identities. And I don't want to read all the slides to you, but I think, the messaging here is that, connecting with students, being intensely curious about students, really wanting to understand their experience, and even relating to your own experience. At some point, you may have felt like an imposter. Even if you were first generation, maybe there was a setting in which you felt like an imposter, you didn't belong, or that, somehow somebody was going to find out that maybe you didn't have as much experience, or you weren't as deep in this particular area. And really, identifying that, this is something students maybe be feeling every day, and it's a way to connect. As Melissa mentioned earlier, Rebecca's department, her website does have a glossary of terms that we like to share with first-gen students, because they don't know what a bursar is. They don't know what an ombudsman is. They might not know what a dean or provost is. They don't know oftentimes when we send them to a resource, what that resource actually means. For instance, and these are my colleagues upstairs, and I think if they could change the name of their office, they may. But the the Office of Student Support and Accountability, can sound a little bit scary, right? Accountability, what does that mean? Are they gonna, am I gonna be in trouble if I go there? Many offices were called the Office of Disability Services or something like that. Ours is called Student Access Office. I think that's great asset-based language that really kind of breaks down the stigma attached to seeking help and support. Okay, so let's just get kind of, specific. Okay, we are going to look at some resources. If you're not familiar with the center, if you're not familiar with TRIO, I want to talk just a little bit about those. And please, again, feel free to so I don't know what a bursary is, right? Exactly. If you are curious, or if you have questions, please just stop me. This is kind of a, I enjoy talking about TRIO. I want everybody to know about TRIO. I'm an evangelist for TRIO. And so please, just stop and ask questions. So for first generation students at K-State, and Rebecca and I, we talk a lot about this. If a parent or a student jumps on the website and they say, and they're interested in first generation student services, what kind of experience do we want them to have? We want to make sure that we can get them easily exposed or easily connected to offices that can support them. And so the Center for First Generation Students is really, I consider, the main hub. If there are other resources we know about, we want to have those added. But our office is just one of several, but we are a part of, K-State's TRIO network. Rebecca mentioned McNair. McNair Scholars is a TRIO program that is funded to help students transition to graduate school. And that, in particular, those students who are interested in research. And so we're going to expose those students to research. We're going to help them identify colleges that they'd like to attend, but also to apply. That program helps students who are juniors get ready and get prepared. And what we'd like for them to have when they leave is not just, an acceptance, but also some research experience and at least a poster presentation at a conference. Okay, that's kind of the bare minimum. And we also have, some resources to help them pay for some of those applications, which can be expensive. Student support services is like the, freshman transition support program. And we have two programs, my program here in Manhattan and my Salina program. Together, we serve about 460 students who are first generation, low income, or students with disability. Our goal really is to make sure that academically those students remain in good standing, persist from year to year, and ultimately graduate in 6 years. And then we have Upward Bound, which is our pre-college program out of Salina. So, and just kind of, I'm going to just kind of take a commercial break. Just so you know, in case you haven't kept up with the news quite as closely, we are still here and we will be here. There was lots of information in the environment about TRIO, and it's still dicey for lots of programs. There's still lots of let's just say there's an adversarial relationship with certain offices that would love to see those funds go to the states and have TRIO administered through the states, which I'm not saying is a bad idea, but I don't know if we have have an opportunity to pause to make that happen, right? We currently serve about 880,000 students around the country with 3,100 programs, and we are operating every single day to make sure that students are getting what they need. So, as far as I know, we'll be here. We are funded. We are awarded for the next 5 years at K-State, and we'll just continue. And the reason we are is because we've been successful. And the reason we've been successful is because K-State is a great place for TRIO. It's a very TRIO-friendly campus, university. And I always say it, and I'm going to say it until it's not true. I've never gotten a no. Any support I've asked for, I've gotten it. Most of what we do really does depend on great strategic partnerships with other offices on the campus. Okay, so what do? We serve, again, this is the Manhattan program. We serve 300 students. We provide free one-to-one tutoring, GRE prep for those who are getting ready to go to graduate school. We help with FAFSA completion. We like to make sure that we are helping students with the new simplified FAFSA because it's very complex. And we help expose students to financial literacy education. We happen to have an award-winning financial literacy office here on campus called PowerCat Financial, so that makes that part of the job very easy, but making sure that students are taking advantage of those resources is important. I'm going to keep going past that. Eligibility. This is the part that's really important because it can be confusing. TRIO, there are 8 programs. 7 of those 8 programs have the same requirements. First generation students, which means parents don't have a bachelor's degree, didn't earn a 4-year bachelor's degree. Both my parents went to college. They got married, went to work, worked for the same company for 35 years and retired. But I was first generation, okay? Because they did not finish. If they're not first generation, we can look at income. We can qualify a student based on income. Pell eligibility is not necessarily going to align with the federal eligibility requirements for income. So I always tell anyone who's interested, just send them to us. We will do what we need to do. We'll work the numbers to figure out if they're eligible. And then any student who's registered with the Student Access Center. And I see Melissa, I'm going to put Melissa on the spot. But any student who's registered with the Student Access Center, if you're not familiar, many of our students think that their disabilities have to be visible. And so they're missing out on an opportunity to potentially receive services, not just through the Student Access Center, but also with TRIO, because they're not aware of the accommodations that might be available. Melissa, you had mentioned just sort of a list of services, or not services, but disabilities that will qualify a student for support through Student Access Center.
Yes, there are quite a few, and Jason Meisberg Tomlinson at the Access Center has talked about a lot of those, and some are surprising to students. They're the typical ones that are physical ones that we can often see and know about, but even those physical ones we often don't realize. Students might qualify because of a learning disability, ADHD, autism spectrum. They can also, some of the more common ones are for diagnosed anxiety or diagnosed depression. So there are accommodations and disability support for those as well for students.
Thank you. Thank you. So again, and if a student is registered with the Student Access Center, it automatically qualifies them. They still have to apply, but it automatically qualifies them for TRIO. Okay. Our goals for our next 5-year cycle, 25 through 2030, 78% persistence, 77% good academic standing, and 56% 6-year graduation rate. How are we doing? So what you see in front of you is a slide that captures data for the university compared to the TRIO data from our latest annual performance reports. We're working on a 24-25 report right now, but again, because of challenges in DC, our annual performance report system is not up and running just yet, and we are waiting to submit that report. And we'll be able to, hopefully report out to the campus our latest numbers for 24-25. I think we have that. So let's kind of just maybe get a little bit more interactive. And I don't know if you've ever heard of this reflection model called I like, I wish, I wonder. Rebecca sort of recoined it as I learn, I wish, I wonder, I will. And so if maybe one of you could take one of those and just based on some of the things you've heard today, whether it's about the asset-based lens, just information about first-generation students, or TRIO, maybe just give us a quick sentence starting with I learn, I wish, I wonder, or I will.
I have
I
one.
Oh, sorry,
go
go ahead.
I have one really quickly. I wonder when the completion gap will be closed at K-State.
I was going to say, I wish our colleagues watched the recording of this video when we posted it on our website and do some of the things y'all recommend.
Well, hopefully the reflections will continue. Oh, I see something in the chat. I wish every faculty staff member at K-State felt excited to serve first generation college students. I wish university systems were more transparent. So mine is going to be, I will continue to educate myself about first generation students and their experiences. I'm a first generation student, but I will tell you, I learn something almost every day from a student still about their experience and how I can do my job better. Here is a link, and if you can maybe type that in or save that in your browser or your bookmark, it's just a list of resources. There's a link to the glossary of terms. There's a link to the overview of the asset-based education model. There's just other links to research, the journal we mentioned, just so that you have those in one place. And if there's anything else, you might want to know, you might be curious about, and I know you don't need one more newsletter, you don't need one more journal, but if this is important to you, if you find yourself, just curious, let us know. We try to immerse ourselves in this information daily. Rebecca, you have anything else?
I just want to thank everybody for taking the time to learn and to grow. And I also want to thank you for serving our first generation students. And if you have any questions or you want to come and visit the center, feel free to do so. And we have one activity this afternoon as part of our celebration. I would like to bring it to your attention. Is the Tri Alpha induction celebration is with the induction of our students. And so we're going to induct 148 students into Tri Alpha, and which is an honor society, and it's going to be at 4 p.m. Forum Hall. And two of our members that are right now in the session will be inducted, Dr. Saucier and almost Dr. Eric Thompson. And I also want to say Dr. Gregory Eislein was inducted, I think, the first year when we had Tri Alpha. So it's exciting to have so many high achieving students, and we're going to show them off today. Thank you.
Thank you both. And by the way, audience, don't leave just yet. We got a couple things I want to put on your radar. But number one, let's please thank Eric and Rebecca for this wonderful conversation and bringing this to attention, and for all the things that all of you do in supporting our first generation college students, as well as the other students on our campus. But first generation students have some particular challenges that they brought to light, and hopefully we can teach from that asset focus like they've talked about. We will be sharing with you a post-event survey. We'll be dropping that into the chat. I'll remind you about our professional development series. And we got a big event next week too. Not just the Fix Your Content Day on Tuesday, but next Wednesday, we're going to be talking about T-Vals. Show of hands, how many of y'all love T-Vals? I'm seeing some people not raising their hand on purpose. T-Vals are amazing, and next week I'm going to tell you why. And what we're going to do is talk about how we can get better T-Vals in our conversation next week. And by be better, more informative and more productive. I don't necessarily mean just students saying nicer things, but I think T-Vals are a wonderful tool. Next week we're going to tell you why. So please be here for that. And thank you for all of your engagement in our events. I'll remind you, we got that TLC hub where we get some information out there in the absence of K-State Today, the way that we used to have it. So please do check that out. If you haven't been made aware of our hub, Jeff's going to add you to it a little bit later because he's been adding people as they attend our events. That's like automatic admission to our hub. If you didn't want to be on there, he'll take you back off. That's okay. But please do check that out for information, real-time conversation, etc. But again, Rebecca, Eric, thank you so much. Looking forward to seeing both of you later this afternoon and the other slate of events that y'all have this week. So hope you all have a great rest of your afternoon.